All right, so moving on to the next segment, I will be sharing my top 5 NFL teams that I believe that need to consider or start a rebuild this NFL offseason. So let's start at number 5 with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, it's kind of crazy to think about the Las Vegas Raiders already starting a rebuild, but I think it's time for a rebuild. Despite having a brand new stadium out there in Las Vegas, Nevada, I think the Las Vegas Raiders should consider a rebuild this NFL offseason. Based off of this year, I do not see them, when it comes to next year already, based off of last year, what I just saw, I don't see them competing in the AFC West with the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, led by Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. They're not going anywhere until those two guys are no longer in KC. I don't see them competing with a Los Angeles Chargers team. A Los Angeles Chargers team that was really good this year came up short in the playoffs despite blowing a 27-0 lead against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that team is roster-wise will be very good next year. They battled a lot of injuries. I called them the 2021 Ravens 2.0, the way how they battled injuries this year. And I think even with a Denver Broncos team that could be revived, even if Sean Payton comes there or not, I think Russell Wilson won't struggle as much as he did this year. I don't see them competing in what I believe will be a jam-packed AFC West next year. I think Josh McDaniels, former offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots, had his first stint with the Las Vegas Raiders this year as the head coach. I think it might have been a mistake hiring him. Offense looked like a mess. For a coach that's known to be an offensive mastermind, the offense looked a mess this year. I don't care if Derek Carr was out there, Devontae Adams, even at the time when Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller were on the field, Josh Jacobs at the running back position. I said it before the season started on the podcast, I said that's an offense you build on Madden. And that offense looked terrible this year. One of the worst offenses in the league this year. The defense did not play good as well. They blew 5 double-digit second-half leads this year. The Las Vegas Raiders did. Not good on being, not good having Josh McDaniels as your head coach either. This offseason is going to be might be a good one or a bumpy ride if you're a Las Vegas Raiders fan. We already know that Derek Carr will not be back in Las Vegas next year. He's going to either be traded or released from the team. So Derek Carr, your franchise guy, will be gone. You could potentially lose Josh Jacobs, who was the leading have the rushing crown this year for being the rushing leader. He is said to be a free agent. You could potentially lose him in free agency. Defense has holes everywhere. Besides Max Crosby and Chandler Jones on the defensive line, that defensive line is horrendous. And then you look at the linebacker position, there's a lot of holes there. Secondary, one of the worst secondaries in my opinion in the National Football League. Thin at the cornerback position and at free safety and at the safety position. There's a lot of holes to be filled on that defense. It's going to be interesting to see what Devontae Adams wants to do. He was just traded there to play alongside his buddy Derek Carr, his former college teammate. It's going to be interesting to see if Devontae Adams wants to stick around in Las Vegas if they fail to get a veteran quarterback that could be traded there. Whether they get Tom Brady, whether they get Aaron Rodgers, whether they get another veteran guy, it's going to be interesting to see if Devontae Adams wants to stick around and play with a young quarterback. So if I'm the Las Vegas Raiders, in the back of my mind, if you can't land a veteran quarterback, I'm thinking of a rebuild. And number 4, the Indianapolis Colts. I think this team immediately needs to figure out who's going to be the head coach of for sake of the future. I just don't think Jeff Saturday is built to be that guy, built to be that leader in Indianapolis. Yes, he was one heck of a center in his career in the NFL, but based off of what I saw and his chances to coach on the sideline, he did jump from being an analyst, and days later he was coaching an NFL game. But after that Las Vegas Raiders win, I didn't see why he should be the future head coach of this team. They need to figure out who's going to be the leader of this franchise moving forward at the head coaching spot. They need to draft a young quarterback. Their strategy of going after veteran quarterbacks is just simply not working. You look at what they did in 2020 when they acquired an aging Phillip Rivers. You look at what they did in the 2021 season when they acquired veteran quarterback and Carson Wentz, who was basically broken And at that particular point in his career, I say that with all due respect. Then you look at this year, they bring in a aging Matt Ryan who just doesn't have the ice in his veins, formerly known as Matty Ice. He just doesn't have it anymore. Your strategy of going after veteran quarterbacks, veteran fossil figures that just don't know how to ball anymore, it's not working out anymore. They need to go ahead and draft a young quarterback this NFL draft. The offensive line and defensive line were totally disappointing this year. The offensive line over the last few years have been one of the best offensive lines in football. They were definitely disappointing this year. Reasons why Jonathan Taylor really couldn't get going in the running game this year because of the offensive line played bad. Defensive line was kind of disappointing as well. They have a good pass rush. They weren't making a lot of plays this year. Weren't making a lot of noise on that defensive pass rush this year. Both lines were disappointing this year. They're going to have to make a lot of changes to this roster if they do wish to keep up with the new kings of the AFC South and Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it might be best for them to go ahead and hit the reset button and rebuild in Indianapolis. At number 3, I have the New Orleans Saints. They haven't been a great team since Drew Brees decided to retire a few years ago, and they weren't a good football team last year. Their first year after not having Sean Payton at the head coaching position after he walked away from coaching. So this team has not been good since those two guys left the franchise. Obviously, we know that they were the reasons why that the New Orleans Saints won their only Super Bowl with the help of Drew Brees, a Hall of Fame quarterback, and Sean Payton, who will one day be a Hall of Fame head coach. Both of them will one day be in the Hall of Fame. But they have a lot of talent to go ahead and trade away to get ready for a rebuild. They could get a lot of draft compensation for a lot of guys that could go ahead and trade. They could trade Alvin Kamara, who is a speedy, shifty running back in the National Football League. He could do anything. He can make plays in the backfield, whether it's running the ball, plays in the backfield, receiving the ball. You can line him up even in the slot if you wanted to. He has the intangibles and the route running skills to be effective in the slot. I think Alvin Kamara would be a great asset to trade for draft compensation. I think the same thing about Michael Thomas. Whether they want to trade him or release him, I think the team needs to go ahead and do that regardless of what happens. Once upon a time, Michael Thomas was a top 5 receiver in the National Football League. We know injuries have caught up to him. He has missed a lot of playing time since 2020. No longer, in my opinion, a top 10 guy because there's so many so many wide receivers I can name off the top of my head better than him. So why not go ahead and trade or release Michael Thomas? Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu still has a lot left in his gas tank at the safety position. I think when you put him in put him in a great defensive scheme, I think he's a top 5 safety still in this league. Demario Davis, a linebacker who's one of the best linebackers in the league. He's getting up there in age now, but definitely doesn't get talked about as much. Demario Davis definitely should be on the radar to be traded. I think they could get at least a 2nd or a 3rd rounder for him. And Sean Payton, your head coach that you somehow, some way still own the rights to. I know they're looking for a lot for him. Rumors and speculation are saying 2 first-round picks, some second-round picks. I don't think it's worth doing all that to get a head coach. But, hey, get what you can for Sean Payton. They can build around this team. If they go ahead and trade those veteran guys or more that I just mentioned, they can go ahead and get a lot of draft compensation for their future. They could build this team around a young quarterback who they need to go ahead and draft. Another franchise is not cutting it, bringing in old savvy guys and Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston to play the quarterback position. I think they need to go ahead and draft a young one sooner rather than later. You just drafted Chris Olave from Ohio State at the wide receiver position, build around him offensively in the rebuild. They have Pete Werner at the linebacker position. I think they should build around him defensively, and Alontae Taylor at the cornerback position defensively as well. Number 2, the New England Patriots. Mac Jones did not play well this year whatsoever, at all. I know in the rookie season, they were comparing that man to Tom Brady. That was a slap in the face. Mac Jones did not play good this year. The offense was ran by Matt Patricia, I should say. He is a defensive guy. Why are you giving a defensive guy an offensive playbook? Bill Belichick knew better than that. and giving Joe Judge the keys to the offense as well, after what he did with the New York Giants as being a head coach, running a QB sneak on 3rd and 8 at your own 15, 20-yard line with Jake Fromm, unacceptable. I don't know what Bill Belichick was thinking, giving these guys the keys to the city, keys to the offense in New England, Boston, and Massachusetts, but that wasn't it, Bill. But those guys will not be returning with the team. They just announced today that Bill O'Brien will be coming back with the team. Had his stint a long time ago. Now former offense coordinator with Alabama, will be making his return to the NFL. So they'll be looking a little differently offensively. Actually, Bill O'Brien and Mac Jones will be reunited with each other. Bill O'Brien was actually the play caller when Mac Jones was there helping Alabama win the national championship not too long ago. This team lacks a lot of elite talent. Trading away some veteran players at this particular point wouldn't be a bad idea. Bill Belichick is getting up there in age. He doesn't have much time left in his coaching career. Obviously, one of the best coaches of all time, in my opinion, the greatest coach of all time when you think about his resume. Has 6 total Super Bowls with the New England Patriots as a head coach, 8 in total when you talk about his time being a defensive coordinator in the league. That matches up to 8 Super Bowls that he's helped win in his career. But he does not have much time left. If they go ahead and trade some veteran players that they have on their roster, they can get some draft compensation. Go ahead and build this team quickly within the next year or so. They can go ahead and compete again in the AFC. I think the Patriots definitely need to consider a rebuild. And then last but not least, at number 1, the Tennessee Titans. Their championship window has officially closed. You look at what they did in 2019, they went on a great run in the playoffs. They were a wild card team. They went on the road, beat Tom Brady in which would be his final game with the New England Patriots in 2019. They went on to the next game, beat the Baltimore Ravens in the divisional round. The Ravens were the number 1 seed in that year, in that tournament that year. Knocked them off in Baltimore. And then they lost the AFC Championship game to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Then you look at 2020, they got knocked out in the wild card against the Baltimore Ravens, hosting a playoff game that year. They were the 4th seed that year, lost in the playoffs. Then fast forward to last year, 2021 playoffs, they were the number 1 seed, got knocked out in the first round, in the divisional round by the Bengals. Despite having 9 sacks, sacking Joe Burrow 9 times, they somehow, someway failed to win that game. I think the championship window has completely closed. The franchise has started to make bad decisions. It started by trading your franchise wide receiver in A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles. That was just a no-go. I know contract negotiations were getting tight between them, but that was bad. Then you make your franchise quarterback angry when you when you draft Malik Willis, knowing Ryan Tannehill is your franchise quarterback. They did that in the first round. So to create cap space, if Ryan Tannehill is not on the roster next year, they can save up to $27 million in cap space if he's no longer a part of the team. They can do the same thing with Derrick Henry. If he's no longer a part of the team, they can save up to $12.5 million. If Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, veteran player Robert Woods, and another veteran player and Bud Dupree are released or traded from the Tennessee Titans for the next year, the beginning of next NFL season, they would save up to $81 million in cap space. They will not be winning the division for a while. Just like I just said about the Colts, there's a new king in town in the AFC South and the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a perfect time to rebuild. So those are the teams I think should consider or definitely rebuild this NFL offseason. I think all franchises I just named should take the time to consider it. Will they do it? Time will tell. But those are my top 5 teams that I believe should consider or go ahead start the rebuild.